Many people have seen or read The Exorcist, and quite a few have been scared out of their minds by the story. While the fictional tale is notoriously well remembered, how much do people know about the true story that inspired The Exorcist? The 1949 exorcism of 13-year-old Ronald Hunkley wasn't front-page news in the small town of Cottage City, Maryland. A few articles were written about the incident, but most residents refused to speak about what happened. The possessed was given the pseudonym Roland Doe to protect his identity and went on to live a totally normal life. The real-life exorcism of Roland Doe was enough to inspire one of the most terrifying movies of all time. So what actually happened back in 1949? When he was a college student at Georgetown University, William Peter Blatty saw a newspaper article that caught his attention. It was 1949, and the Washington Post headline read, "Priest frees MT Rainier boy reported held in devil's grip." The idea of an exorcism stuck in his mind after reading that article, though he didn't start writing the novel The Exorcist until 1969. Blatty used some elements drawn from Roland's case, but embellished many of the scenes to make them more terrifying for readers. Prior to the release of The Exorcist, exorcism rituals were rarely performed. After the film and novel gained widespread popularity in the 70s, the riot was brought to the attention of the general public, and since then the number of real-life exorcisms has only increased. In the last decade, the number of certified exorcists living in the U.S. has doubled. The Catholic Church blames the increase in occurrences of demonic possession on the exact activities you would expect them to. This rise of possessions is fueled by things like pornography, drugs, and the failure of the mental health care system in the United States. Many people are experimenting with paganism and atheism. As the true story behind The Exorcist, Roland Doe's life has intrigued people for decades. However, when the details of the event were first released by the media in 1949, there were several common inaccuracies. The simplest mistake involved where the Doe family lived. Although their house was located in Cottage City, Maryland, news articles listed their hometown as the nearby Mount Rainier, Maryland. Additionally, some publications reported the possessed age as 14 when he was actually only 13 at the time of his exorcism. These may seem like minor details, but they had an interesting effect on the surrounding community. Teenagers in Mount Rainier would gather at an empty lot that had become known as the site where the family had lived, scaring each other with stories of demons and ghosts. They had no idea that they weren't even in the right town. Roland and his Aunt Tilly were very close. He was an only child and relied on the adults close to his family for friendship, since he wasn't very good at making friends his own age. Roland's Aunt Tilly was very spiritual. She was the person who first introduced him to Ouija boards. She passed away at the age of 54, shortly before Roland became possessed. The family believed that Tilly was at least in part responsible for the possession of Roland. According to the diary of one of the priests involved in the exorcism, when the spirit was asked to knock 3 times if they were Aunt Tilly, 3 knocks were heard. The family asked again for 4 knocks as confirmation and received 4 knocks in response. The Doe family claimed that all sorts of terrifying events occurred in their home, most notably the movement of inanimate objects. Family members witnessed furniture move on its own, objects levitate and fly across the room, and bed frames shake violently. Roland was even removed from school because his desk would shake during class. Some of the moving objects were of a religious nature. Spiritual pictures on the walls would rattle, and bottles of holy water would routinely fall to the ground and break. After his family could endure no more, they called in a priest for help. Roland supposedly screamed "O sacerdos Christi tu sais me esse diabolum" at him, which translates to "O priest of Christ, you know that I am the devil." Most people believe that this was truly the devil speaking through Roland, since he had never been taught Latin. However, it's also possible that he picked up some basic Latin from attending church for so many years and was faking it. There were 2 attempts over a period of months to exorcise the demon inside Roland Doe. For the first attempt, Roland was brought to a pastor's house where he was tied to a bed. During the rite, he reached under the mattress, tore a spring from it, and slashed the priest's arm. The cut was so bad it needed stitches. The exorcism was put on hold, and Roland was temporarily sent home to his family. While many people believe that this episode truly happened, some researchers suggest that there is no actual evidence of the event's occurrence. Throughout his possession, Roland repeatedly noticed mysterious scratches on his body. According to one source, words appeared across his chest that read St. Louis. Believing it to be a sign, his family packed up and boarded a train for St. Louis, Missouri. Once there, a reverend named William S. Bowdern performed the rite of exorcism on Roland between 20 and 30 times over a 2-month period. During an exorcism, more scratches appeared on Roland's body, this time resembling the words hell and evil. Things then turned violent, with Roland fiercely resisting, talking in a strange voice, and even breaking the nose of one of Reverend Bowdern's assistants. Despite this struggle, the exorcism was successful, and the demon was eventually vanquished. In the fall of 1949, rumors surfaced at Georgetown University that a diary existed detailing the events of Roland Doe's exorcism. An anonymous psychiatrist who was present for the exorcism had written a 16-page account of what he had seen, complete with descriptions of the phenomena the Doe family had experienced and instructions for future exorcisms. The psychiatrist handed the diary over to Georgetown faculty member Father Eugene B. Gallagher, who shared it with the dean and the media. When Father Gallagher tried to get the diary back from the dean, he was told that only 9 pages remained. Writer Mark Obsasnik's summary of the viewpoints of various participants says a lot about how the exorcism of Roland, or Rob, Doe was handled. To psychiatrists, Rob Doe suffered from mental illness. To priests, this was a case of demonic possession. To writers and film/video producers, this was a great story to exploit for profit. Those involved saw what they were trained to see. Each party involved in this case had a self-serving agenda that may have clouded their view of the truth. The Catholic Church is very stingy with exorcisms. As evidenced by the case of Roland Doe, they make certain that there is no other solution, at least in their eyes, before performing the rite. Church officials state that sometimes when a person thinks that they are a family member or possessed by the devil, the true cause of the disturbance is considerably more mundane. They suggest that the person may simply need to see a doctor, a therapist, or simple pastoral counseling. In Roland Doe's case, it's entirely possible that he was simply a lonely kid crying out for attention after his beloved aunt passed away. Not every exorcism is considered noteworthy, but some have made a lasting mark on history, placing Roland Doe among esteemed company. There have been many other famous accounts of exorcisms taking place both in the United States and around the world. One notable example is the 1912 case of a 14-year-old Iowa girl named Anna Eklund, whose father and aunt were supposedly cursing her. Another such case is that of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, who murdered his landlord in 1981 and tried unsuccessfully to blame the crime on a lifetime of demonic possession.